Do you ever feel like Budget Eats just has way too many wacky, insane, never to be replicated again recipes that aren't really recipes that just take way too much time? Yeah, me too. And like, who even has the time anymore to cook now that the world is going back to normal? Well, I've got great news for you. Welcome to Budget Eats Meal Prep Edition. Sorta. This week's theme is brought to you by the top-rated comment on our last episode, so a big thank you to Debbie D. The disclaimer here is obviously this being Budget Eats with capital B, capital E, we're not going to be making 8 servings of the same dang meal. For us, we're going to be prepping our ingredients today to a cooked state so that it's that much easier for us to assemble meals throughout the week. So here are the rules that Julia and I came up with for this week's episode. Due to inflation, we are raising our budget this week to $30. Have you seen the egg prices these days? They are no joke. Needless to say, there will be no eggs at all this week. Number 2, we are working with no dietary restraints this week. There will be dairy, there will be meat, and it's not even gonna be awful. Number 3, we are making just 2 servings of each meal because we don't want repeats. For real meal prep videos, you got the rest of YouTube for that. Just search bar is right up there. Help yourself. And our last and final rule is probably also the hardest. All of these meals, aside from our prep day, will only take 30 minutes of camera time. In case you haven't realized this, in the past 2 years, every single episode except for our camping one has been shot by yours truly in this 90 square foot apartment kitchen. If you've never had the experience of shooting cooking videos on your own with 2 meaty hands, well, it's not an experience I would wish on my worst enemies. Accounting for switches and angles, pausing for airplanes and traffic. Well, 30 minutes of camera time is usually about 15 minutes real cooking time. So technically speaking, if you're inspired enough to create any of these meals, it should take you 20 minutes or less. For all of these meals, I'm gonna set a timer and I'm gonna do my best to not lie to you. Can't promise you though. It's media, baby. Deception is in our genes. Now let's check out our haul, shall we? It's gonna be a fun one. First up, we have our cans, 2 cans crushed tomatoes, 1 can creamed corn, 1 can sliced beets. Next, we have our veggies, 1 bag of carrots, 1 bunch of dill, 1 ginormous bag of spinach leaves, in addition to 2 yellow onions and a bag of discounted, slightly less optimal plantains. Oh, and a sleeve of garlic. You know, we're gonna garlic it up this week. In the dry goods department, we have 1 bag of navy beans, 1 larger bag of pink kidney beans, and 1 2-pound bag of long grain rice. I got this from Dollar Tree. Did you know that Dollar Tree isn't $1 anymore? It's $1.25 now. What is this world? And finally, in our luxury goods department, we have a container of ricotta, 1 block of mozzarella, 1 large pork shoulder, and a can of Stacks, which is better than Pringles. Fight me. And all of that brings us to a grand total of $29.87. And now we get to prep for the next 80 hours. Hey! If you're trying this out at home, this would be the portion that you ideally do on a Saturday or a Sunday, but you know, because of work-life balance, today's Monday. We're gonna prep on a Monday. Doesn't mean that I didn't spend 6 hours shopping and planning for this episode yesterday. Work-life balance is a myth. But one I fully intend on realizing this year. You too. Just a little bit scared. To really maximize our time, we're gonna be using all of our appliances and all of our stovetops and just everything. Go. All at once. So the first thing we're gonna do, beans. Normally, you know that I like to soak my beans the night before to get them nice and plump so that you don't need as much time on the stovetop to cook, but we have the Instant Pot, so maybe we can just cook it from dry and see how that goes. Wish me luck. First thing we're gonna do is to rinse our beans, pick out any stones that might be there and make sure they're clean, and then into the Instant Pot with a lot of water. I'm gonna go ahead and cook our kidney beans first. So into the Instant Pot, we're gonna put our beans, our water. We're gonna season it up a little bit. I have a lot of taco seasoning that I haven't used in a long time. I'll put some of that in, and we'll also put in some steak seasoning, which has a lot of salt and a lot of spices. All good things to have. We'll go ahead and clamp on that lid, make sure the vent is turned off, and then we'll set it for about 30 minutes, see how those go. In the meantime, since the Instant Pot will cook it way faster than the stovetop, we're just gonna soak our navy beans and wait for that first batch of beans to be done first. As we wait on our beans, we're gonna prep our produce. First up, carrots. We're gonna wash them, we're gonna dry them, we're gonna peel them, and we're gonna shred them. Obviously, if you have a big food processor, this might be the time to use it, but we're just gonna go manually today because I don't got one. Shredding carrots is great because then you can eat them raw, no huge hard chunks, and they cook super fast if you need them on the fly. And no, this time I don't think we're gonna save the peel. It's just not one of those weeks, you know? Whenever I'm grating something, I always like to keep a little lipped tray underneath to catch everything without anything flying all over the place. And by the way, when you get down to that little tiny nub, forget about it. Eat it, store it away. Don't keep grating or your fingers will end up in the mix. Next up, onions. No fancy cuts here. We're just gonna skin them, dice them, store them. I'm making do with the containers that I have, so fire container it is. Wonderful. Way to go. Really glad we only have to do that once this week. Next up, we are gonna peel all of our garlic. You've all done this before. Break them into cloves, snip off the bottom stem that is very woodsy and fibrous and rooty, and then smash. Take off the skin, chop if you wish, leave whole if you wish. If you don't want to smash your garlic cloves, that is fine. What I recommend you do is take a single clove with the root end cut off and then give it a gentle twist, and the skin should slip right off. The choice is yours. Are you a pacifist, or do you have a lot of anger pent up inside that you just want to smash out? Either way, you're gonna get delicious garlic. If you find any bad spots or blemishes on your garlic clove, I would just say chop that off, and the rest of the clove is probably fine to use. I've done this for years, haven't died yet, but whatever feels good to you, do. Now that our hands are sufficiently garlicked, let's check our beans, shall we? It's been naturally releasing for about 20 minutes beyond our 30-minute cook time, and I hope it is mushy and tender and creamy. I'm gonna flip our vent valve and wait for it to release fully. When the little thingy-mabobby drops, we can unlid. So it looks like some of the beans that were resting on top of the water level didn't really get fully cooked, but they are pretty edible. They're just not quite creamy. I think for this episode, we're not gonna be very picky. I'm just gonna give the beans a little bit of a mix, make sure some of the liquid is submerging all the top layer beans, and let's just hope they get a little bit creamier as time goes on. I'm gonna learn from my mistake and go a little bit longer with a little bit more water this time, and we're also gonna flavor it with some Italian seasoning and a bay leaf along with some salt. And because we have it prepped now, I'm gonna go in with some cloves of garlic as well. Are you so bored with prep day, Fred? I know. Me too. Go ahead and give it a nice good stir, clamp on your lid, set your time, make sure the valve is back to sealed, and let it go. And back to prep we go. On to dill. We're gonna wash it, we're gonna shake it very dry, we're gonna separate the stems from the little frilly fronds, and we're gonna store them separately. My favorite way to store washed herbs is to line a container with some paper towels, nestle your freshly washed herbs in there, and then just layer it with paper towels as you need to wick away moisture, but to also not dry them out. To make using these herbs as painless as possible throughout the week, we're just gonna give them a rough chop right now. The fewer times you have to break out the chopping board and clean it, the better and the faster it goes. For the final frontier of our produce prep, we're gonna wash these plantains and strip them of their peel. I'm gonna go ahead and trim off each of the ends because they were already exposed, and then we're going to make 3 vertical long slices along the peel so that we could basically just get our fingers underneath that peel and bend it back remove it completely, and you are left with just the green plantain. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in a salad container, and we can just keep it in the fridge. No need to peel any more peels for the rest of the entire week. If you have any idea why plantain peels oxidize your fingers, drop a comment. Let me know. Love to learn a new thing today. With phase 1 of our prep done, let's move on to the rice and the garlic. For the garlic, I'm gonna put them in my smallest pot with a little bit of olive oil and salt, and we're gonna go ahead and just let them cook until they get nice and soft. This is gonna flavor the oil and give you cooked garlic that you can infuse into all of your dishes. Now, because this is budget eats and we can't just use a whole bottle of olive oil, I'm gonna just use enough so that the garlic doesn't burn. We'll give it a toss and a stir every so often until everything's nice and cooked. To prep our rice, we're gonna go ahead and give it a rinse. We wanna rinse it until the water's mostly clear. Some starch is fine. Now, because we're gonna be eating a lot of beans and a lot of rice this week, I wanna make sure that we really have some variety and some spunk to our meals. So I'm gonna be dividing this rice into 4 different batches, and each batch is gonna be flavored a little bit differently. For our first rice, we're gonna use that canned beet, use that pink juice, and make a beet and dill rice. Very Eastern European in that beautiful combo, and I don't know if you can call it this, but I'm gonna call it borscht rice. In a medium pot, we're gonna crack open that beet. We're gonna drain its juice straight into that pot. We're gonna add some of our dill fronds, some of our dill stems, and then we're gonna go in with our rice. Now, I add water, just eyeballing it. I go until about the surface of the rice to the surface of the water is hitting my first knuckle on my index finger. It's not scientific. I failed before. It's no big deal. It's just rice. It'll cook, and even if it's mushy, we'll eat it. We're gonna go ahead and slap a lid on it, turn on the heat, bring it up to a boil. Once it's at a boil, lower that heat to a low simmer, and then we'll just let it cook until it's cooked. Maybe about 17 minutes or so. Go ahead and transfer your open beets to a jar, store it in the fridge until we're ready to use it. Next rice is gonna be tomato and onion. We're gonna take some of our garlic oil that's simmering away. We're going to saute our onions until they're nice and golden. We're gonna pour in some of our tomato puree, and then we're gonna go in with our rice and water. Depending on the sodium level in your canned tomatoes, you might wanna add a little bit more salt, a little bit more pepper, maybe even red pepper chili flakes, whatever you want. Same deal, we're gonna let it simmer until it's cooked, and we're gonna move on to our next one. Every once in a while you can unlid your rice, give it a stir just to see how it's doing. The tomato sauce might need a little bit of incorporation. Our next rice is gonna be a carrot and garlic one. We're gonna use some of the garlic oil, we're gonna use some of the garlic that we just cooked, we're gonna throw in some carrots, let them get a little bit nice and soft together, and then I'm gonna throw in some spices. We're gonna go in with a little bit of salt, coriander, turmeric, white pepper, and black pepper. Give it all a stir, and once it's nice and fragrant, we're gonna go in with our rice, we're gonna go in with our water. Lid, simmer, cook. Before we move on to our 4th and final rice, we're gonna have to do a little bit of putting away our finished products. I'm gonna pack up our red kidney beans, I'm gonna pack up the beet rice. If you like that kind of vague, earthy sweetness of beets, I think you're gonna love this with dill. Our tomato rice is perfect, except the bottom got pretty scorched, but we can save it. This is the downside to using cheap pots that are very, very thin, y'all, but we can still eat this. Don't you worry. Not the first time this has happened to me. Just scrape it very gently and leave that bottom layer for the sink. What's the difference between burnt rice and the char on your barbecue anyway, you know? Our final rice, spinach rice. We have so much of it. In our medium pot, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of garlic oil, our garlic, and our spinach. I'm gonna throw in some salt along with some spices. For this batch, I'm gonna go with a little bit of cumin as well as smoked paprika. We're gonna stir fry that spinach until it dies down to nothing, and then we'll go in with our rice and our water. Our beans, after over 2 hours sitting in the Instant Pot, has naturally decompressed. All the pressure has been released and they are creamy as ever. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that bay leaf, but otherwise the creamy garlic, everything in here smells amazing. I'm also going to save that broth. I think it's gonna be very important for us to just have things to play around with. I present to you a perfectly cooked bean. Oh yeah, baby. Time is of the essence though. The sun is going down on this gloomy day, and now we have to deal with the pork. Oh boy, it's a big chunk of meat. When I started off today, I thought we could just bisect it in two. I could grind it up, make some sausages with one, but now I'm very tired. We're gonna see if the whole thing fits in the Instant Pot, and if it does, it's just gonna get cooked right now. Lofty ideals meet reality. Mediocrity is the name of the game here, folks. I think given how large this piece of meat is, it would be very unwise of me to just plop the whole thing into the Instant Pot all in one go. I think we have to chunk it up into smaller pieces so that it cooks faster and more evenly. Alright y'all, this is how we're gonna cook our pork. I've dissected the pork into 3 distinct bodies. 1, the skin, the fat, and a little bit of meat. This is basically almost like pork belly bacon. Next, we have all the chunks of meat. I cut them into really fat cubes. We're gonna throw those into the Instant Pot and just let it cook with some tomato sauce, our carrot nubs, about 1 onion diced, a cinnamon stick, some star anise, a little bit of fennel seeds, and a touch of sugar. For acidity, I'm gonna drop in a little bit of vinegar. I'm gonna go in with a little touch of fish sauce. And I'm also gonna chop up 2 plantains and mix them in there, and these will be almost like potato-y starch elements. Obviously, salt liberally. I'm also gonna go in with a little bit of this Mediterranean citrus mix just to give it an extra bump in the herbiness. We're gonna set that on manual high for about 55 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm gonna slice up our pork belly-esque cuts. We're gonna throw those into a large pot, cover it with water. We're gonna throw that bone with the marrow in there so that we get some sort of bone broth going as well. We're gonna go ahead and flavor this pot with oso fish sauce, some soy sauce, a little bit more sugar, white pepper, 2 star anise, a little bit of dried ginger powder, and I'm also going to be chunking up 2 more plantains to go into this pot as well. I know it seems like a lot of extra work to do 2 separate batches of meat, but if I f one up, maybe the other one will be less bad. You know me, always thinking of worst case scenario. It comes in handy sometimes. That's pretty good. While we wait for our meat to cook, we're gonna prep everything else, which is to say, we're gonna shred some mozzarella. Because believe it or not, we have prepped everything else. Will we get to eat dinner today? Who knows? It's always a mystery, isn't it? Done and done, let's pack our rice. Maybe my dinner will just be scraps of food as I put them away today. Alright y'all, I think for meal number 1, we're gonna have some spinach rice because I don't have fridge space anymore. I think we're gonna serve it with our Instant Pot pork once it's ready and top it with some mozzarella maybe. Julia has requested that I plate them in meal containers so that we could just simulate the idea of meal prepping, although, you know, this is fake because I prefer bowls when I eat at home, but whatever. It's also just so much harder to wash grease off of plastic, but I'll do anything for you, Julia. 8,000 years later, our Instant Pot has naturally decompressed and we are finally ready to eat. Rice is a little bit cold, but it'll do. I'm starving. And rumor is you guys are missing a certain someone, so as a special request, I've brought him back. Would you like extra juice on yours?
June already told me to say yes to this question.
I didn't.
She said we have to.
Why are you giving the people fake news?
She said we were gonna drizzle stuff over it, so obviously I'm gonna say yes. June, please. I would love extra juice.
All right, Aaron.
June,
Okay.
it smells so 5-spicey in here.
Is it?
Yeah. Is this 5 spice?
There's cinnamon and star anise.
So, pretty much.
2 spice.
2 spice.
What?
What kind of cheese is this?
This is mozzarella.
Cool. This is one of those complete meals, June. It's got everything.
Yeah.
Rice, bits
Yeah.
of greens. I don't know what kind, but they're definitely green.
Yep.
Cheese.
Yep.
Meat.
Yep.
Flavor. It's really good. And it's not as weird as I expected from
Really?
It's, yeah. It's just like rice and, pork.
Would
Yeah.
you eat it for lunch tomorrow?
Gladly.
Score?
You know I don't do scores, June. I give it a would eat for lunch tomorrow.
Thank you, friend. So I think the rice is pretty okay. It's like nicely spiced, but not too spiced. The meat is kind of just really tender. There's a bit of tendony bits that are just almost like gel-like, creamy.
The meat is my favorite thing about this, and especially the juice. Yeah, the le jus. I will say, I think if we pumped up the rice with garlic, a lot of garlic, then
There
that
is
would,
garlic.
more garlic.
Hold on.
June is so prepared. She has the roast garlic ready
There
to
you
go.
go.
Yeah, I was thinking that's all this really needs, other than massive amounts of chili, but that's my own thing. I'm not going to dwell on that. It's all this needs is some garlic, because garlic rice, as we know, is the best thing in the world. Oh my god, yeah, that's perfect. Now that's a trillion out of 10.
Wow. The meat is very tender, very flavorful. The sauce is nice, but I am so pleasantly surprised by the plantains. They are so creamy. At this point, they are absolutely spork tender. Their texture is like a Japanese sweet potato, but not really any of that sweetness. It's just a very nice starch. It's soaked up so much of that tomato flavor, and then together with the rice and the cheese and the meat, Aaron's right. This is a complete meal. But you know what? Even I feel like there's the need for spice, and I'm not even a spice head. So it's lacking a little bit in the flavor department. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Also keep in mind that I've basically been starved the whole day, so my point system is a little bit biased. I think on a normal day, this might have been like a 6.9 out of 10. But you know what? It's not a normal day. Today is today, and we live one day at a time. So I'm gonna pack up the rest of these things, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hello, welcome to day 2. I am extremely tired today. Yesterday was just a very long prep day, but hopefully every day onwards now is gonna be a whole lot easier. I promised y'all we're gonna make our meals within 30 minutes of camera time, which means even shorter time if you make it at home, so that's what we're gonna do today. We have a lot of rice, we have a lot of spinach, so I'm thinking ricotta spinach rice thing. The easiest way to do this would of course just to toss everything in the oven, but I don't want to turn that thing on just for 2 servings of food, so we're gonna use the microwave. In a microwave safe container, we're gonna lay our rice, we're gonna pour over some of our tomato pork broth, we're gonna layer on some ricotta. Why do you make packaging like this? That is impossible to open. Why? I do get the feeling sometimes that like people who make products don't ever use their own products. There's a way better way to do this, y'all. Come on. Steak seasoning. There we go. Black pepper. Sweet paprika. Fennel. Oregano. Mediterranean spice. A little bit of black cardamom. And a hint of spice. We're going to pour over a lot of spinach. Probably should have gone with a bigger container, but we learn. We live and learn. And then we're gonna pour over more broth. For our ricotta layer though, that is completely unseasoned, so we're gonna have to jazz it up a little bit. And finally, top it with some mozzarella cheese. So now we have 17 minutes left. I'm gonna pop this into the microwave and we're just gonna let it go until that cheese is melty and the spinach is wilted. Reflections so far, I mean, this is basically just like cooking leftovers, which is honestly how a lot of restaurants cook your food too. Most of your food at restaurants are par cooked and then heated right before they serve it to you. It's kind of impossible if you order a whole protein that they give it to you right when you order it. It's gonna take hours for them to prep everything. So, you know, just casual restauranting at my home. And I'm honestly loving this hands-off cooking because then I can do dishes. This is great. Let's do this more often, guys. It smells like pizza in here. I think we're making pizza rice. And I'm super pumped. The cheese is bubbling. I kid you not, it's even got pizza grease on it. Not bad. Per my instructions, I'm going to plate it in these plastic containers, but I'm not a huge fan of putting hot stuff into plastic, so what I think I'm gonna do is layer the bottom of these plastic containers with more spinach leaves. After all, we can always eat more vegetables. Looking back, I didn't anticipate that much liquid being in ricotta and spinach, so the amount of sauce that I poured in was a little bit soupy in results, but it's probably still gonna taste good, right? Flavor is flavor, you know? I'm gonna say the obvious thing here, it's not that pretty, but when you're working with time constraints and everything else, I think not bad. And you know, as long as it's nutritious and delicious, and it's got a lot of cheese, I'm not gonna complain. It is pizza rice, but it is kind of soupy. But it's soupy in that creamy way, so it's almost like pizza rice pudding on a bed of spinach. Okay. I dig it. There's some real nice pepperiness shining through on my tongue, a kick of cayenne fire going down my throat. You have the umami savory tomato coating every single grain of rice, soaking into the ricotta. Then you have the creaminess of it all to calm it down. Slight crunch from the spinach, both fresh and cooked. My heart and my brain are both saying yes. Yes to this dish. 10 out of 10. I am extremely satisfied with this dish, and I think we made enough for 3 servings even. Nice. Let's brainstorm our next meal, shall we? So last night we cooked that pork on the stove with our fish sauce and our soy sauce, and at the end of the night when I packed it away, I separated it into plantains, pork, and broth. These plantains are super tender, super mashy, and super flavorful, and I've never had mofongo before, but I feel like we could make some. Mofongo is a Puerto Rican dish. It's basically mashed plantains. Now, normally you fry the plantains, then you mix it with garlic and salt, but in our case, we have boiled plantains. We have garlic cooked in olive oil. We add a little bit of salt, probably a little bit of everything else, and we got Budget Eats mofongo. It's sometimes served with rice and beans, and we got rice, we got beans. So rice and beans it is. Before y'all freak out, mofongo is an inspiration point. This is not authentic. I'm not trying to be authentic. This is just me throwing together, eating it. That's it. 30 minutes. Let's go, baby. To begin, for our rice and beans, I'm just gonna put the rice and the beans in the microwave and let it warm up while we work on our plantains. As always, if you know it needs seasoning, so you gotta put it in. For the plantains, I'm gonna dump them in a pot, turn it on a very small heat so that it warms up. As far as what we can add in addition to our plantains, well, we got this pork bone with a lot of marrow and some stray meat, and I think we can just mash it all in there and make it that much more flavorful. Check out that marrow though. Super flavorful. I'm also gonna add in a little bit of crunchy onions as well as our dill stems. And I'm gonna keep mashing it with all the ingredients. I'm gonna taste it as I go. I'm gonna flavor it how I see fit. I think it needs a little bit of acidity, so we're gonna go in with a drop of red wine vin. I think you saw this coming. With just about 10 minutes left on the clock, we're gonna get plating. I see a lot of pictures of shaped mofongo, so we're gonna try to wet this little tiny bowl, press some of that mixture inside, and then tip it upside down in our serving containers. And I don't think you can go wrong with a little bit of mozzarella. Two minutes left on the clock. I think I have some meals for you. I think in the past we've gotten a lot of comments about how the servings are too small, and these I think you'll be satisfied with. I packed these to the brim and there's still more that I reheated. And if I'm honest, because these meals are so quick to whip up, I'm not even hungry yet after eating the last one. But eat it we must. Eat it we shall. Some jobs. What can you say? I did my spinach leaf thing again, but who are we kidding? We're basically made of microplastics at this point. Anyway, cheers. Let's get a little bit of our plantains, beans, and rice all in our first bite. There are so many layers of savoriness. It's gonna take me a minute to sort it all out. The first layer that hits is definitely the dill and the fish sauce. Very strong, very fragrant, and very balanced, surprisingly so. Then the creaminess of the beans, the rice, and the plantains, a little bit of creaminess from the cheese, a hint of meat fiber with that pork fattiness. The spinach is a nice little foil, and then it brings out the sweetness inside that beet rice. That tiny addition of red wine vinegar was absolutely essential to brightening the whole thing up. And the beans are actually really creamy right now, so the carryover heat from yesterday must have done its job. All in all, I would say this is a very satisfying meal, and it's really hard to pinpoint what culture it comes from. There's just so many different ingredients and flavor profiles, but they all work really well. Oh, I just got a pop of raw onion. That's really good. I'm a genius. All in all, I'm really happy with this. I do wish the rice was a little bit moister. I do wish that there was more bean sauce when I reheated it. So as is, I'm gonna give it an 8.1. Not bad. All right, y'all. I think I'm not hungry enough to make another meal. I also have to hop off to a meeting soon. Got a lot of work to catch up on. Exhausted from yesterday's shoot, so I'm gonna take a break for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Hello, welcome to day 3. For the day of 3s, let's make 3 meals. Set your expectations high and only failure is to come. I'm thinking for the first meal of the day, let's start things off a little bit lighter. Oh, so the spinach has got to start going. There's so much of it, it's starting to wilt. There are yellowing leaves, there are gummy leaves, it's not good. I mean, even when you don't buy a 2.5 pound bag for $1.99, your salad greens will inevitably go bad during the week, so let's just cook it as soon as possible. Meal 1, I think we're gonna make a salad, and I think we're gonna make like a little hummus-y situation. We're gonna plop some rice, pickle some carrots. Let's go, 30 minutes. First thing I'm gonna do is take some of our beets, chop them, put them with our carrots. Couldn't find my apple cider vinegar in time, so we're using rice vinegar, same thing. I'm hoping this amount of time will let them pickle just a little bit, add a little bit acidity to that salad. Next thing I wanna do is make our little hummusy thing. I'm gonna take some of our cooked navy beans, some of our cooked navy bean liquid. I'm gonna immersion blend them together. I want you to think about how difficult it is to film with one hand and immersion blend the other. Just think about it. Obviously, we gotta give it a taste. Definitely needs more seasoning. Black pepper, a little bit of a salt blend, smoked paprika, cumin, za'atar. Better. Still needs a little more salt though. Sometimes when it comes to cooking, all you need is a little more salt, maybe a little more sugar. Just back to the basics, but more of it, you know? Yes. And speaking of salt, I think we really need to salt our carrots and beets. Every component of the salad needs salt. If there are any shots that are out of focus, I apologize. We ain't got time to be in focus right now. We have 17 minutes left. Half of our time is gone. Still though, I have to wash my immersion blender because it's one of those things that don't get easier with time in the sink. Oh my god, I forgot to put my garlic in. All this time I was like, it's missing something. What is it missing? Good thing is though, these are already so mushy, we don't really need an immersion blender to blend it in. We can just mash them in by hand. A little bit of textured garlic. What's not to like? Oh my god, it smells delightful. Yes, garlic, cooked in oil. Haven't tried it yet? Try it today. I think I'm experiencing heart palpitations. Oh my god. This is not good for my mental health. Now, one of the things I hate most about eating a green leaf salad is the leaves are too big for my mouth. The leaves brush against my cheeks, make me look like the beast that I actually am. Just not into it. So we're just gonna give them a quick chop, throw them into a big bowl, and assemble in there. I don't think in my 2 years I've ever felt as crazy in a budget eats as I do now. 9 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna taste the rice and see if we need to heat it up. If not, let's just roll with it. Oh, we need to heat it up. That's disgusting. For some more flavor, we're gonna chop up some of these dills. All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Ooh, that's hot. That's hot. Guys, it's a salad, you know, just throw everything in the bowl, toss, serve, eat. Be complete. Obviously, you gotta taste it, check for seasoning. A little more salt. What else we got? We need a little more umami. Oh my god, 1 minute. Let's get to plating. Man, it's like I'm on Chopped or something. Ooh, okay. That was close. Here we go. Salad time. Big, hefty, grainy, vegetable-y. Lots of things, including cheese and beans. What more could you want? Yes, my kitchen is a mess. Yes, my computer is on the stove. What you gonna do about it? Are you satisfied by this circus? Smells good though. Carrot rice meets fresh carrots, meets beets, meets dill, meets spinach, meets cheese. I think I covered it all. Nothing to do but to eat it. And we gotta love a salad you can eat with a spoon. Just gonna collect my thoughts here for a minute. I don't know what Chopped or Sweet Green would charge for a salad like this. Probably half of our weekly budget, but y'all, this is a yes. Also, shout out to Aaron's brother Jason, who was like, June, have you ever tried hummus dressing? And I was like, no, what the heck is hummus dressing? Hummus dressing on salad. Yes, It coats the leaves in this very earthy creaminess. It's not too slick like a vinaigrette can be. There are hints of vinegar from our pickles, that nice fragrance from the dill, but nothing is overpowering. That ricotta, it's giving so much balance, light, and gentleness to the whole experience. And I think it all just works together. You get nice little chunks of sweet beet, slightly juicy, slightly textured, but not at all al dente. The hardest thing to chew is the rice, and the rice itself is buoyantly creamy. My blood is pumping, my adrenaline is going. I'm being overly generous here, but I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10 just because For our next recipe, I'm thinking patacon sliders. There's a Colombian sandwich called patacon pisao, and it's usually a green plantain fried whole, smashed into a round disc, and used as bread in a sandwich. Now, can somebody tell me how it is that the more I cook, the more food appears in this fridge? I don't know how this is possible. As I was saying, now, I have whole plantains. They are not cooked. In 30 minutes of camera time, I will not be able to fry them twice. So I think we're gonna chunk them into smaller pieces, boil them, then smash them, then pan fry them. Will it work? I don't know. Is it authentic? Definitely not. And of course, adding some cheese to make everything perfect. Y'all ready for this? For our plantains, I'm gonna fill a medium pot with a lot of water, salted heavily, and then we're gonna chop up our plantains. I'm thinking about 4 to 5 pieces per plantain, drop them in whole. Now for the slider portion, I'm gonna have a little bit of an onion carrot condiment, again, tossing them in vinegar and letting them sit. And then I think we're gonna take our pork belly pieces that are already cooked. As far as spices on our pork, I have this very old hickory smoke rub that I've been waiting to use for a very long time, so I'm gonna go in with that. I'm also gonna go in probably with a little bit of coriander and a little bit of cumin and a little bit of smoked paprika, just to give it a lot of intrigue. I'm trying to kind of mimic a chicharron, but it's not gonna be a chicharron. We're gonna mash up some of our kidney beans with our garlic, make a little smooth pate out of that. Hi, Fred. You want some bean paste? You smell the pork, don't you? Would you like some pork? Yes. Give it a little taste. A little salt. To fry our patacon in, we're gonna use some of that pork fat from our pork broth. This is kind of falling apart because you're supposed to let the plantains cool completely before you smash them, but we ain't got time for that, so let's figure something out. When in doubt, parchment it up. I really think I bit off a bit more than I can chew this round, but we're just gonna keep churning. And that's definitely why you don't want to multitask, folks. Burnt to a crisp. Don't worry, we'll still eat it. I think with just 20 seconds left on the clock, there's no way I'm not gonna fail this one, but it's fine. Just pretend it never happened. Or pretend it did, and we'll still get to eat. Since this challenge was a little bit of a time failure, I figured let's just skip the pretense and skip the little containers and plate it on an actual plate so you can see it in all its glory. I present to you patacon pisao sliders. We got some Bernie boys, but I almost feel like these could be quite delicious. Sweet and bitter. Not the first time I've done this on toast. I mean, honestly, would it have been better if it were twice fried instead of boiled and fried? Yeah, that's why it's done that way, but you make do with what you have. And what I have ain't half bad. I didn't make enough buns, especially after burning 2 for all of the meat that I made, but I think I'll be satisfied with this. 2 of the plantains ended up burning because some of my camera settings went wonky in the middle of the shot and I was trying to figure out why it looked so blue, and then bam, burnt plantains. But in any case, this looks quite pleasant. We have some air fryer chicharron, a half-fried patacon, a little bit of a carrot onion slaw, and some mozz with a mashy kidney bean mash. All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. Oh my god. Holy crap. Whoa! Do y'all see how tender this meat is? It's just falling apart with a push of my fingers. It's juicy, it's fatty, and man oh man, when it comes to the actual fatty pieces, this is literally butter. It is liquefying under my hands, and it is dripping onto our patacon. And here we go, ladies, gentlemen, cats and dogs. My goodness, my goodness. We got the salty, the savory, we got the sweet, we got the punchy, the vinegary, the crunchy, and the creamy, and I just... Did I fail the challenge? Heck yeah, I did. Do I love what I made? Heck yeah, I do. My goodness. Oh, look at this. Creamy kidney bean mash. Kind of feels like this smooth peanut butter on this sweet banana bread. But instead of banana, we got plantains. And instead of jelly, we have chicharron. And my goodness. I'm gonna give this a 12 out of 10. I quit. It's been a while since we've made a meal that good on Budget Eats, y'all. I know we're only on Wednesday, but if there's gonna be one meal that you remake from this episode of craziness, it's gotta be this one. I'm gonna take a minute to collect myself and the pork grease that is all over my floor and stovetop, and I will meet you back here for our final meal of the day. My air fryer, by the way, is a disaster. But you betcha we're not wasting any of this grease. I'm gonna be collecting it by dumping some of our rice in there and just scraping it all up. That's just flavor, baby, and you don't toss flavor away. Right, Fred? He knows. That was way too much fat splattering around and way too much effort. So for our final meal of the day, we're gonna make soup. More precisely, we're gonna have rice and bean soup with a lot of spinach and pork broth. Been doing a good job of using this today. We're gonna keep using it. To start, we're just gonna plop in some of this gelatinized broth. We're going to add our pork, plantains, and because we have so much of it, 2 kinds of beans. Along with rice, we're gonna give it a good stir until everything's nice and warm and bubbly. Are you hungry, Fred? Do you want some soup too? Are you doing that thing again where you're looking in the mirror, Fred? It's kind of creepy. It's like, what are you even looking at? Right. Would you like to be the new host of Budget Eats, Fred? Are you good at cooking? Would you like to audition? Can you make me a bacon, egg, and cheese? All right, bud. Enjoy! Once our rice soup is looking nice and starchy, ready for the spinach, ready to eat. The dill is nice, the pork is a little heavy. I think I'm gonna go in with a little bit of caraway and a little bit of togarashi just for spiciness and nuttiness. There we go. I'm also going to add a little bit of MSG to tie together that kind of sweetness from the pork and the saltiness of everything else. Apologies to Julia and my broken promises, but there's just no way I'm putting hot soup in a plastic container, so we have it in a bowl. I present to you rice and bean and pork soup, which is more like a stew, but still. At this point, you can see that I had stirred it so much and the pork was already so tender to begin with that it has kind of melted into the soup. It almost reminds me of this dish called halim, and it's eaten in a lot of places in the world. Wiki tells me it's a type of stew that exists in the Indian subcontinent, the Middle East, and Central Asia. It's usually got some sort of grain like rice, meat like pork, spices, and cooking liquid. It's slow cooked and stirred vigorously until it's kind of a sticky, gooey paste. I didn't really stir mine quite as vigorously, but you know, we like a little texture here and there. Let's take our first bite. Cheers. The caraway that we added almost makes every single bite taste like it's about to fly away from your mouth. That sort of lightweight mintiness just makes it feel so refreshing. Very strange for a meat stew to feel like this, but I don't mind it. And you know me, as a fan of mush, I'm a big fan of this. I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. The chunks of plantain basically taste like potatoes that have been cooked down in a creamy chowder. They're still holding their shape, but you don't really need teeth to really get it down to a creamy mash in your mouth. The beans are half present, some still in their shapes, some completely melted into the broth. Overall, super creamy. I don't know. I think this is gonna taste even better as leftovers, and boy oh boy, do I have them. If you think I'm being super generous with my grading this week, it's because I am, but also for the effort that goes into putting one of these together in under 30 minutes, I just feel like they deserve a 9 out of 10. Don't you? Low effort, high flavor, intriguing variations. This entire week is basically a glorification of leftovers, and glory be to leftovers, for they are good. And with that, I'm gonna pack up the rest of this soup, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Do you ever have one of those days where you only get about 5.5 hours of sleep and you still wake up and have to go to work? You really don't feel like doing it, but you know you're gonna do it, and you know it's just gonna be really Oh good, we're on the same page then. I don't know why, but they were paving roads right outside my window on my block until like 4 a.m. My entire building was quaking. Welcome to Thursday. Don't worry, we'll get through this together. Change my earring to pump myself up. Let's go. It's quite cold today. I think we're gonna start off with something soupy, stewy, stovetoppy. Been staring at this can of creamed corn, and I think we gotta make something with this. Risotto. Creamed corn risotto. We got our garlic confit, we got our pork broth, we got our little dill. Perfect. For a little bit of richness at the end, maybe we'll go in with some ricotta. That sounds good. Now obviously we don't have the arborio rice that you're supposed to use for risotto, but we do have this golden turmeric carrot rice that I think will work perfectly with corn. Chances are the corn inside this can is not going to be this yellow, so that turmeric is really going to help bring forth corn. Because let's be honest, you eat with your eyeballs first, and if it doesn't look like corn, you're not going to think corn. To keep the seasoning a little bit simpler, I have some dried thyme, some nutmeg, maybe white and black pepper. Should I factor in my thinking time too? Have I been cheating? Anyway, here we go. Large pot over medium heat. We're gonna go in with some of our confit garlic. Then we're gonna pour in our rice, break it up as best as we can so that the grains are separate. Sometimes I like to use this 2 spatula method to really separate your meats and grains. Plus, it's fun. Then I'm gonna open up our can of corn and just pour some in. If you think about it, risotto is just basically like savory rice pudding, right? Sounds good to me. Most of this recipe will just basically be us waiting for that rice to break down and starch up the rest of this broth. Go in with our pork broth, our thyme, our nutmeg, white pepper, black pepper, and just bring it all up to a simmer. In the meantime, I'm gonna transfer this corn to a jar because this is pretty dangerous. You'll notice I haven't added salt yet because this comes with a lot of sodium, and our broth had already a lot of soy sauce and fish sauce in it, so I think we're probably set. We have about 10 minutes left. They're paving the roads again outside. Our soup is thickening, and I'm gonna work out how much ingredients I use so we can calculate a rough meal price for you. Oh, I can't feel my tongue anymore. That was a mistake. But I think it tastes good. A little bit spicy. Not really sure why it's spicy. Maybe the black pepper, or did I put something in that I don't remember? Once our risotto sounds thick enough, and when my spatula can clean across the bottom of the pot and you can see the pot for a split second, we're gonna pull it off the heat, we're gonna let it cool off a little bit, and then we're gonna fold in our ricotta. We're gonna go ahead and plate this, and then maybe I'll drop some dill on top for prettiness. Presentation counts, I guess, even when meal prepping. For a little garnish, I added even more ricotta on top, plus some dill, because green, it always makes food a little more pleasant to look at. Shall we then? Smells really good. Gonna add a little bit of dill onto my bite. Don't want to burn your lip again. The granularity of the grains are definitely too disintegrated for this to qualify as a risotto, but I would say this is a very successful savory rice pudding. I just added a little more black pepper. I'm gonna swirl the ricotta in. Wow, look at that presentation, y'all. It's like I work for food media or something. You have the slight bite-sized chunkiness of the corn kernels, and then you have the creamy, half-melted rice in there. You get a little hint of porkiness, but not at all very much. If you didn't tell me, I would think this might be vegetarian. I can smell the dill and I can taste the garlic, and I'm gonna say that this is a solid 7.6 for me. And yes, that is the lowest I've rated any meal so far, which doesn't mean that it's the worst. It just means I'm not feeling as generous today. This is nicely comforting. It's a little bit peasant foody for me, which I love. Love my mush, no judgment, but it's just watered down rice when it comes to it. However, I would say the spice mix that we went with works really well. You wouldn't think that thyme, ricotta, nutmeg, and fish sauce work together, but they do. Oddly enough, I don't smell or taste the fish sauce until I smell my spoon, but otherwise, you wouldn't even know it's there. I'm gonna go ahead and pack these up, do some dishes, meet you back here for our second meal of the day. Next meal, I'm thinking veggie meatballs, cooked in sauce, maybe with a side of creamed spinach. 2 components, I know, overachieving, aren't we? For the meatballs, I'm thinking we pulse together some of our beets along with our rice and our carrots, maybe a little bit of bean to hold it all together. As far as spicing up our meatballs, I'm thinking a combination of oregano, celery seed, along with cumin, white pepper, and black cardamom and black pepper. Maybe a little MSG, maybe some more of this hickory rub since that worked so well for us last time. The masher isn't really doing great, so I'm gonna switch to my 2 spatula method again. Because everything is already cooked, we don't have to worry about raw meat or raw anything. I'm just gonna dump this Instant Pot sauce into a pot, heat it up. And since we have still quite a bit of it, I think I'm gonna try to mash some mozzarella in there too, because who doesn't like a cheesy meatball that has no meat? Hopefully it'll just come together magically into something edible. Really gotta love it when your camera doesn't focus the first time. And there we go. What do you think, Fred? Will this fit all the spinach we need? You think so? Okay. With just about 11 minutes to go, I'm gonna put another pot on the heat. I'm gonna dump in some of our bean cooking liquid. I'm gonna add our spinach to it, wait for it to wilt, take it off the heat, stir in some ricotta, cream spinach. Spinach is very watery, so I'm just gonna try to drain off as much of it as I can because we want cream, not soup. For our cream spinach, I'm just gonna add in a little bit of white pepper, black pepper, salt, mix it all together, hope it's seasoned nicely. For our meatballs, I'm going to drizzle that sauce over to help coat the meatballs without fidgeting with them too much because they might just fall apart, since they're not actually meatballs. I think by now we've done away with the pretense of meal prep, and let's just put it on plates, shall we? What do you think, Freddie? I know it looks more like your food than mine. Thoughts? Not so good. Fred ran away. Unfortunately, the balls just didn't have enough staying power and they really fell apart. And it looks like rice and beans all over again. You know, it's not a bad thing, it's just disappointing. That's all. I had too high of an expectation which is to say I had expectations to begin with at all. Honestly though, the colors are super appetizing. I know it's well seasoned. It's just a matter of, well, these aren't really balls, are they? But they do have melty cheese. So, at least there's that, y'all. At least there's cheese. You know what? Just because it doesn't look like meatballs doesn't mean it doesn't taste like meatballs. In fact, this is reminding me a lot of like chilies or bolognese. If you think about it, this is kind of like our first meal's flavor profile, just presented in a different shape and format. It's got the rice, it's got the beans, it's even got the same sauce and traces of meat from that leftover cooking process. And it's not bad. It's actually really good. I did forget to fish out the star anise though. All right, let's give the spinach a try, shall we? A 10-minute cream spinach. Decent. Spinach is tender, tender, tender. Now all that's left to do is to try the two of them together. Big bite, here we go. Yep, that's good. That's a meal. Is it a meatball? Absolutely not. Did I lie to you? Kinda. Did I lie to myself? Mm-hmm. That being said, I'm perfectly happy eating this. I'm gonna give it a 7.2. Flavor is good, texture is good. It's just not what it says it is, but you know what? That's all of the world, really. I'm nicely surprised by chunks of pork that got in here by accident from the broth, and you know what? I'm gonna amend my rating. This is a solid 7.5. You know the drill. I gotta clean this shit up, and I'll come back for a third meal. You know what I kept thinking about while I was doing dishes was, what if we hadn't steamed these meatballs? What if we air fried them? I think, of course, part of the problem is I didn't grind these things down fine enough. They're still very granular, likely to fall apart. But also, just with all the added moisture from the sauce, something that was already really, really wet got even wetter and just bloated and fell apart. Makes sense. So what would happen if we repeated this experiment, coated the balls with something to seal them in, and then dehydrated them instead of boiling and steaming them? There's a reason why I got the Lay's stacks, y'all. Yes, of course, I love sour cream and onion chips. I could eat this whole container times 2 for dinner, but we're gonna use them as an ingredient. I don't know, you made it sound like you almost forgot this is an episode of Budget Eats. I think for my own peace of mind, I need to know if this recipe can work in the air fryer, so we're gonna make not meatballs again, air fried. I still have some extra filling from our last try, but we're not gonna replicate ingredient by ingredient. We're just gonna use a lot of other stuff, or, you know, a lot of the same stuff, but new, but not. You know what I mean. Here we go. To keep things cohesive, we're gonna use a lot more beans this time, and I wanna save the rice for another recipe, so no more rice. Beans, we have no shortage of. Something else that's gotta go, our dill. It's starting to get a little bit dark and gummy, just like our spinach, so chop them up, mix them in. I'm gonna add a little bit of mozz, but I'm also gonna add a lot of our pork. We have a lot of those cooked, time to use it. Now what's really great about this pork mixture is that there's plantains in it, and plantains makes for a mashier mash. We're gonna put all of those ingredients plus our little hickory rub in a bowl, mash it up, and then we're gonna crush up some of these Lay's stacks. We're gonna use them as like a panko coating basically to seal in all of that meatball structure. We're gonna put them in the air fryer and just let her rip. All right, peeps, good news is our meatballs are in. Bad news is we definitely won't have enough time. I feel like anytime we do an air fry recipe, I run out of time, but whatever. Onwards to the ricotta beet mixture. We're going to immersion blend together ricotta, pepper, salt, and beets for a little dipping sauce. The color is nice and pink. Beautiful. In terms of the flavor department, it is a little bit lacking, so maybe we add something. We have time. Whoa. Cinnamon? Why not cinnamon? Is this weird enough for you yet? That works. It almost gives it like a smokiness. We got less than a minute left. Our air fryer's still going, so I'm just gonna do some dishes. We're gonna fail this round, but hopefully the balls will be still balls when they come out of the air fryer. I've never seen such beautiful balls in my life before. Golden. I present to you a tale of two cities. The ones on the top layer of the dehydrator disc got a lot browner, and the ones on the bottom, slightly soggier, not as brown. Either case, they are still balls. I consider this project a success so far. I believe this is going to be our last meal of the day because my stomach is tapping out. I cannot eat any more, but this is very promising. 2 meatballs in one day. What a lucky girl I am. Cheers. Okay. All right. Right off the bat, I can tell you this is a very different meatball than the last one. For one, the dill is extremely strong. I love dill, but once you put dill into something, you cannot take the dill out of it. I can't taste the sour cream and onion chips. I can't really taste anything else except for the mashy beans and dill. Let's go for a dip. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I didn't make the connection until just now that we have dill and beet, which is kind of like the classic ingredients I associate with borscht. But we did. This is what we did. We made like borscht balls. And it works. As you can see, the ball isn't really holding its shape once bitten into, but much better than being boiled and or steamed. So I'll take it. I'm just gonna plop this in, take a little dive, get a lot of sauce going. One thing that I'm noticing is cinnamon and dill, both very strong flavors, one sweet, one floral, very potent. Together, they're kind of like frenemies. And what I mean by that is neither of them cancel the other one out. They're both coexisting. They're not quite harmonizing together, but they're not quite clashing either. So it's functional. It's a functional, working, professional relationship. Given that these meatballs are a leftover of a leftover, I would say not bad. I'm gonna give these a 7.2 as well. Not the best, not the worst, totally edible. My biggest qualm is I can't taste the sour cream and onion chips, and I really wanted to taste the sour cream and onion chips. The crunchy chip exterior meeting with that almost yogurty, smooth, thick sauce, that texture is 10 out of 10. For sure, would eat this texture combo again. I wouldn't be making this flavor combination together anytime soon. There's pork, plantains, there's tomato saucy bits with dill, and there's beet and ricotta and sour cream, and it's just a lot, you know? But this kind of technique works. Just change up the flavors, mash up your balls, coat them in chips, air fry them, make a creamy dip sauce. You got dinner. And even though I only gave it a 7.2, I can't stop eating them for some reason. Maybe it deserves more. I don't know. I guess you'll have to make it, and you'll have to write down in the comments below how you liked it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow, I guess. I hope. We have a lot of ingredients left. How is there still so much food left? I don't get it. Never ceases to amaze me how much more makeup makes me happier. Like, not actually happier, just look happier. Folks, welcome to Fake It Till You Make It Fridays. Today, I'm hoping is the final day of this, whatever you want to call it. We still have quite a bit of ingredients left, mainly beans, but we're gonna try to turn out 3 more dishes. Because I'm fairly exhausted by day 5, let's just try to keep these as simple as we can, which for me, I know is not gonna be simple at all. Let's be honest with ourselves, if anyone, right? First things first, take your vitamins, because not sure if it does anything, but placebo effect works wonders. Next up on the agenda, fried rice. I don't think you can go an episode on leftovers without making fried rice, so here we are. We still have some pieces of our pork belly. I think I'm gonna slice that up. We can use some of our garlic confit. We have bits of dill stem and onions, as well as our carrots. And of course, the last of our straggling rice. If you're looking at that and you're thinking, June, that's not enough food for 2, well, don't you worry, we got a ton of beans. So let's begin, shall we? I think you've seen fried rice cooked enough times that you don't need me to narrate what's going on. Pan, heat, oil, stir fry, rice, crispy, warm, seasoned. The emphasis on good fried rice is, do you have enough oil, do you have enough heat, and do you have enough seasoning, which really are the 3 main golden rules to any cooking. To ensure we have enough fat, I'm just gonna use all of this pork and all of that pork fat. I know I said I was gonna slice the pork, but ain't nobody got time for that, so we're just gonna do it right in the pan. Gonna add our garlic, just 2 cloves, our dill and onion, carrots, now we think about the spices. I'm going in with some cumin seeds as well as coriander, a little bit of our hickory spice rub, some of Mom's 5 spice, along with a pinch of hing, and of course, MSG. When you smell the spices toasting, go ahead and add your rice. To separate my rice grains, I like to just give it all a nice little gentle smash with my fish spatula. That way it kind of just presses out all the grains and separates them. I'll also be going in with a little more fish sauce for salt, a little bit of dark soy sauce for color, and finally we're gonna finish it off with some sesame oil at the very end. All that's left to do is to clean your camera lens and go ahead and wait for that rice to sizzle in that fat. Unfortunately forgot that this spout on the fish sauce is non-existent, so we're gonna add some carrots to wipe out that saltiness. Even with our little faux pas, I think with 5 minutes left to go, this rice is ready to eat. Or rather, I'm ready to eat this rice. What is the rice gonna eat? The rice is absolutely gorgeous, coated in fat, fried, golden brown. Hell yeah. Initially, I was thinking we could add beans to this to really substantialize it, but you know, this has a lot of fatty pork, and I think we're set. I bring back to you your very favorite special guest,
Aaron from Queens. Why I give the last thing a trillion out of 10?
Uh-huh.
This is a trillions out of 10.
No way! That is not cat hair, by the way. That is pork fiber. It has become so shredded, we've made hairs out of meat.
Wait, there's pork floss in this?
No.
Basically.
There's pork belly
Okay.
that have turned into pork floss. Organically.
This absolutely broken down pork belly that's just been like essentially melted into the rice was absolute Flavor City. Not just Flavor Town, June, Flavor City.
Are you gonna put chili? Okay, of course he is.
Shout out our boys TJ's, not sponsored.
I thought this was gonna be too salty, but I think it's almost got that like Momofuku vibe of just salty enough that you think you need water, but addictive enough that you go back for a second bite and it just spikes your blood pressure immediately.
Well, I don't like that. It's so fatty and rich, I think. The higher fatty and rich something is, the more salt it can take in the flavor.
The grains are not mushy at all. They're distinct. They're almost al dente because they've become dehydrated in that fat. And just like the carrots have turned sweet and almost candy-like and almost gummy. I can't recommend enough cooking your food in lard.
You really fiberized it. Which sounds weird, but it's a good thing. June, I'm going to stand here and eat the whole thing on camera.
Okay, well, I'm
that
gonna
good?
cut because Zach's gonna hate us. I'm gonna give this a 12 out of 10 again because this is restaurant level. I think with Aaron's spice additions, it's probably a 14 out of 10, but
You want a little bit?
no, I don't want a little bit. When in doubt, fry your rice. Okay, for our next meal, we have this beautiful cast iron skillet with still a ton of flavor and pork fat, so I think we gotta do something with it. And because we have so many dang beans and a can of tomato, I think it makes sense for us to do chili. We still have some of this pork from the Instant Pot. I'm gonna throw some of that in too. For a little bit of added sweetness, I'm gonna add some of our creamed corn in because that came packed with sugar. And obviously, we're gonna be putting in a lot of spices. Because everything is already cooked, this should be a very quick meal. We are essentially just heating things up. I will just note at this time that I highly recommend you use a bigger pot than this. Mistakes were made. It's okay though, because now we have a vegetarian version in the back. For our seasoning, I'm gonna go in with taco seasoning, steak seasoning, some coriander, and cumin. And why not? Some of this too. Very easy. 20 minutes of camera time, 10 minutes your time. You could, of course, just eat that as is, but I have this leftover pizza rice from I don't know how many days ago. So let's put some of this under. We're gonna pre-season Aaron's bowl with a little bit of cayenne. And if that wasn't quite trashy enough for you, well, have I got a pièce de résistance for you. And we're just gonna go ahead and give these chips a little crush. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is there's cold rice, hot chili. So just give it a nice little stir so that not like that.
June, are these Pringles on top?
They're Lay's stacks.
Okay.
Get it right. Okay, get a bite of chip, get a bite of chili, get a bite of rice, and here we go. Cheers.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there. I'm tasting a profound sweetness. The pork, I think, is, as always, the star here. You really perfectly cook this in every dish.
That's 30 minutes. Why, thank you. I can't take credit for that. That's all thanks to the Instant Pot, not sponsored.
But yeah, it's a good chili. I'm not a huge chili head because, you know, it's like bean mush. It's definitely more of a June dish. It's satisfying. It's just the right level of heat. You added actually some chilies to this.
For you.
Put chili in the chili.
Thank you.
Not mind-blowing like the rice, but
Of course.
I like it.
Thank you so much. Bye. I like it enough to go back for a refill, but like Aaron said, chili is my domain of favorite foods. My biggest disappointment, yet again, is I can't really taste the Pringles. The flavor is just not strong enough unless you eat them on their own. Why don't I eat it on its own? That sour cream and onion taste just hits so much more straight when it's in one piece, which is giving me an idea for our next meal. This one is a nice solid chili, mushy beans, nicely warmed rice, some greens, a little hint of spice. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I think it is perfectly acceptable and perfectly edible. I know, as well as you do, that there are some nights where you just don't want to cook and all you want to do is eat chips. But certainly there's a way to eat your chips and your veggies too. So for our next meal, this one goes out to all my grazers. We have beans, we have vegetables, let's make some chips and dips. We still have some of this ricotta, which I think we can make into a spinach dip. For our white beans and dill, I think we can make a hummus. Don't get at me, I know it's not hummus, hummus-esque dip. For our beets and kidney beans, another bean dip. So I think 30 minutes to make 3 dips should be okay, right? Won't know till you know. For our spinach ricotta dip, I'm just gonna add in the rest of our garlic here for some extra richness. In goes our ricotta, salt, pepper, spinach. A little too salty. Don't worry, nothing a little extra spinach won't fix. We just have to pick out all the bad ones first. Has anyone invented technology yet where you just don't have salad greens go bad ever? Kind of like eternal life, but for plants. Not humans, because we suck. Chaos. It has come upon us. Much better. I think it needs a little bit of smoked paprika, put it in. I also think it needs a little bit of sweetness, so we're gonna go in with some of this corn. And finally, a touch of acidity. Unfortunately, I think this is as good as we're gonna get. It kind of tastes like too much dill, which kind of tastes like sweaty armpits, but onwards. I'm gonna give it a swoosh. We're gonna add some garlic oil to this. On to the next. It's a race against the clock. Everyone, I present to you our trio of dips along with chips. This is very heavy. Dips are way more intensive than I thought. I'm gonna take a sip. This feels nice. This is gonna be my favorite meal of the week, I think. No doubt in my mind right now that the spinach one is gonna be my favorite one. The creaminess, the saltiness, the verdantly green color just makes it pop. So appetizing, both in terms of looks and flavor. The creaminess of it also works super well with the sour cream and onion flavor profile. The specks of MSG and flavoring just melts into that dip. The beet is nice, but a little bit beety, which means earthy, dirt-like. I also over-salted it a little bit, so with the seasoning on the chip, it's a little too spiky. I don't think it tastes bad, but it's just got a very peculiar vibe to it. Kind of appropriate for Halloween. It tastes like blood from an angel's sacrifice. Does that make sense? I saved the worst for last, which is the dill one. I went way overboard on the dill. It tastes a little bit much. But actually, now that I taste it, and now that it's had some time to sit together and the flavors melt together, and now that it's on a sour cream and onion chip with a lot of garlic oil on top, not bad. Quite delicious, actually. It's fascinating sometimes how much flavors can change with time. Now, I don't mind this one. Here you are, sir. I present to you chips and dips.
So you made these chips?
I wish. That was the dill one.
Mm-hmm.
Very dilly.
Dilly dilly.
A little bit garlicky.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That was the spinach ricotta.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
This is beans.
Yes.
Okay.
Beet beans.
Yum.
Thoughts?
I really like the chips.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They're fine. They're not mind-blowing, although I like to think that the spinach one is actually quite nice. Very easy to throw together. I would give this meal a 7 out of 10. I think you want a little vegetable with your snack? You got a little vegetable in your snack. Now, I was hoping that it wouldn't come to this, but we still have a lot of ingredients left, so I think we're gonna squeeze out one final meal. It's gonna involve plantains. One of my favorite things to do with green plantains is to roast them and toast them into crispy chips in the oven. So I'm thinking plantain nachos. Plantain-chos. We're just going to preheat the oven somewhere between 350 to 375. The thinner you can get your chips, the faster they'll cook and the crispier they'll get. You do want to make sure they are in a single layer, that way they can get crispy instead of just steaming, which is still cooked, but you know. We all know crispy is better. A little bit salt, pepper, maybe a little taco seasoning, just to spice it up a little bit. And as our plantains are roasting, I'm gonna go ahead, throw a little bit of vinegar into this guy, and we're gonna have some little tiny pickled carrots to throw on top. Plantain chips are in. We're gonna flip them halfway through. In the meantime, I'm just gonna shred our pork, pull together our cheeses, and wait. We're gonna pile on our toppings and let them melt together. We have a lot of cheese, so the best part of nachos is gonna be there. Our cheese is barely melted, but we're gonna say that's fine. I'm gonna sprinkle on some of these carrots. We might go on with some spinach ricotta mixture from before. And wouldn't you know it, I still have some dill, so maybe that can go on for color. Well, it certainly smells good. But does it taste good? Unfortunately, the plantains aren't crispy anymore. Should have seen that coming, but a little bit. Can we get a cheese pull? No. But we can get a big bite. There are so many layers of meatiness because the pulled pork is everywhere and the plantains are kind of soft. It almost makes the plantains taste like meat. And then you have the creamy beans strewn among the pork. And it's just like, what's meat? What's not meat? Who cares? It's all delicious. I would say if I were to do this again, I would probably assemble everything on already crunchy plantain chips so that they don't get soggy like this, but the flavor, still good. The texture, passing. Given that this is our last meal of the week, I would say not bad, June. I'm gonna go ahead and give this meal an 8.2 out of 10, mostly because I am so relieved we are done with this episode. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Budget Eats. I hope you make some of these meals and tell me how ridiculous they are, and let me know in the comments below if there's anything you want me to make on the next episode of Budget Eats, because whether or not I want it to, it's coming. Until next time, stay soggy, spicy, and sweet. And if you have any meal prep tips and magic tricks that you want the rest of us to know about, drop it in the comments below too, because sharing is caring. Until next time, enjoy your trash nachos. Take care of yourself. Bye.